My name is Amber, and I'm 32 years old. I never imagined that watching my sister's wedding would be through a viral video of her new husband slapping her across the face. The guilt of not being there haunts me daily. When my family said I would make the wedding awkward, I reluctantly stayed away. That decision replays in my mind every time I see her tearful face in that white dress, stunned by his violence while 200 guests watched in horror. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If family drama has ever affected your life, please subscribe. I wish someone had told me what I'm about to share with you. Olivia and I were born just 4 years apart. I still remember the excitement I felt when my parents brought her home from the hospital. With her big brown eyes and tiny fingers, she immediately had my heart. As little girls, we shared everything. Our bedroom was a wonderland of secrets and giggles. I taught her how to braid hair, and she followed me everywhere like a devoted shadow. Those early years were simple and sweet, filled with backyard adventures and made-up games that only we understood. The shift in our relationship was so gradual that I barely noticed it happening. Around the time I turned 12 and Olivia was 8, my parents began treating us differently. At first, it was small things. Olivia would get dessert even when she didn't finish dinner. She'd receive extra presents just because. When I asked for the same treatment, my mother would smile tightly and say, "Amber, you're older. You need to set an example." By high school, the preferential treatment had become impossible to ignore. My 16th birthday arrived with minimal fanfare. I'd been hinting for months about wanting a small party with my friends at the local bowling alley. Nothing extravagant, just pizza and a few hours of fun. The day came and went with just a homemade cake and a new sweater. "Money's tight right now, honey," my father explained. "We'll make it up to you." 3 months later, when Olivia turned 12, my parents transformed our backyard into a carnival, complete with rented games, a cotton candy machine, and gift bags for 20 of her friends. I helped set up decorations and served punch while swallowing my hurt. That evening, I overheard my parents discussing the cost. "It was worth dipping into the college fund," my father said. "Did you see how happy she was?" That was the first time I realized they had been using my college fund for Olivia's celebrations. The discovery hit me like a physical blow. That night, I applied for my first part-time job at the local grocery store. Throughout high school, I worked 20 hours weekly while maintaining my grades. Meanwhile, Olivia received an allowance triple what I had ever gotten simply for existing. The betrayal that cut deepest came during my senior year. I had been dating Jason for almost 6 months. He was kind, smart, and the first boy I truly cared about. One afternoon, I came home early from work to find Olivia and Jason sitting suspiciously close on our living room couch. They sprang apart when I entered, but the guilty looks told me everything. Later that night, Jason confessed they had been secretly meeting for weeks. When I confronted Olivia, she shrugged and said, "He liked me better. It's not my fault." Instead of addressing Olivia's behavior, my parents suggested I was overreacting. "Boys will come and go," my mother said dismissively. "Don't create drama over nothing." I left for college with a partial scholarship and student loans, determined to build a life away from the toxic dynamics at home. Those 4 years were transformative. I made genuine friendships, excelled academically, and discovered my passion for marketing. For the first time, my achievements were recognized and celebrated. I graduated with honors and secured a position at a respected firm in Chicago. Olivia's college experience was vastly different. She attended the state university with our parents covering all expenses. Despite this advantage, she changed majors 3 times and took 5 years to graduate with mediocre grades. Throughout this period, our parents continued to bail her out of every difficulty from parking tickets to failed classes that needed retaking. I made multiple attempts to repair our relationship during those years. Each Thanksgiving and Christmas, I would return home with thoughtful gifts and genuine interest in her life. Sometimes we would connect briefly, sharing memories and laughing like we used to. But inevitably, something would trigger the old patterns. Olivia would make a cutting remark about my appearance or career, and when I responded with hurt, the family would rally around her. "Why do you always have to be so sensitive?" Amber became their collective refrain. Every time I established a boundary or expressed displeasure at being treated unfairly, I was labeled difficult and dramatic. Family gatherings became exercises in emotional endurance. I learned to smile through the slights and save my tears for the privacy of my childhood bedroom or the long drive back to my apartment. Therapy helped me understand that I wasn't crazy or oversensitive. My therapist introduced me to terms like family scapegoat and golden child syndrome. The validation was both comforting and painful. I realized that the dynamic wasn't likely to change, but I could change how I responded to it. I considered cutting ties completely, but something always held me back. Despite everything, Olivia was still my sister. I remembered the little girl who had once looked at me with adoration. I couldn't help hoping that somewhere beneath the entitled behavior, that person still existed. So I opted for limited contact instead of none at all, protecting myself while leaving the door slightly open. I first met Brian at Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. Olivia had mentioned a new boyfriend in our occasional phone calls, but this was their official debut as a couple. He arrived wearing an expensive watch and carrying an imported wine that he made sure everyone knew the price of. His smile was perfect. Too perfect, like it had been practiced in front of a mirror. "Amber, the successful sister," he said. When we were introduced, his handshake firm to the point of discomfort. "Olivia tells me you're quite the career woman." Something in his tone made the compliment feel like an accusation. Throughout dinner, Brian charmed my parents with stories about his family's vacation home in Aspen and his position at a prestigious investment firm. He had the right schools, the right connections, the right everything. My father was particularly impressed, refilling Brian's glass attentively and laughing too loudly at his jokes. But I noticed things beneath the polished surface. Whenever Olivia spoke, Brian would subtly redirect the conversation back to himself. When she left the table to use the restroom, he casually picked up her phone and scrolled through it. Most concerning were the jokes that felt like thinly veiled criticisms. "Babe, maybe go easy on the mashed potatoes," he said with a chuckle when Olivia reached for seconds. "Remember that dress we need to fit into for the Thompson wedding?" Olivia's face fell momentarily before she forced a smile and withdrew her hand. No one else seemed to notice or care. After dinner, Olivia mentioned her recent promotion at the marketing agency where she worked. It was the first time I had seen genuine excitement from her in years. "It's entry level for now, but there's real growth potential," she explained. Brian patted her hand condescendingly. "It's cute that you're trying the career thing, but honestly, with my trajectory, you won't need to worry about that long term." My stomach tightened at his words and Olivia's accepting nod. This wasn't just normal relationship banter. This was someone systematically undermining my sister's independence. 2 weeks later, we met for dinner at an upscale restaurant in the city. Brian had made all the arrangements, ordering for Olivia without consulting her preferences. When the young male server complimented Olivia's choice of wine, Brian's demeanor instantly changed. His jaw tightened and his eyes hardened. "We don't need the sommelier service," he snapped. "Just pour the drinks and go." Later in the restroom, I asked Olivia if Brian was always so controlling. She laughed it off. "He's protective, that's all. He wants the best for me." "There's a difference between protective and possessive," I countered carefully. "You don't understand. He has high standards because he cares." Her defense was immediate, rehearsed. Not everyone wants to be alone and independent like you. The barb stung, but I persisted. A few days later, I invited Olivia for coffee. Just the two of us. I had rehearsed what to say, trying to find words that wouldn't trigger her defensiveness. I care about you. I began stirring my latte slowly. And I've noticed some concerning things about Brian's behavior. Olivia's expression immediately closed off. Let me guess. You think he's controlling and I could do better. I think he doesn't treat you with the respect you deserve, I said gently. The way he checks your phone, makes decisions for you, criticizes your body and career. Those are warning signs, Liv. Brian said you'd do this. She replied, her voice suddenly cold. He said, You've always been jealous of anyone who loves me. That you can't stand to see me happy because you're so miserable in your own life. I was stunned into silence. The realization that Brian had been poisoning my sister against me was devastating. That's not true, I managed finally. I want you to be happy. I just don't think he's making you happy. I think he's isolating you from friends and family. And that's what abusers do. The word abuser was a mistake. Olivia stood up so quickly, her chair scraped loudly against the floor. You're pathetic, she hissed. Brian was right about you. You can't stand that I found someone successful who loves me. Someone who isn't temporary like all your relationships. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, leaving me sitting alone with 2 half-finished coffees and a hollowed-out feeling in my chest. When I called my parents to express my concerns, their response was predictable. Brian comes from an excellent family, my mother said dismissively. They have a summer house in the Hamptons. His father plays golf with the governor. What does that have to do with how he treats Olivia? I asked, frustration mounting. You've always been hard on your sister's boyfriends, my father chimed in. Maybe you should focus on finding someone yourself instead of criticizing Olivia's choices. 8 months after that Thanksgiving introduction, Olivia called to announce her engagement. The diamond was enormous, the proposal extravagant. But in the photos she texted, her smile didn't reach her eyes. During the months of their engagement, I watched my vibrant sister transform into someone I barely recognized. Her colorful wardrobe was replaced by muted tones that Brian preferred. Her social media posts became less frequent and more curated. Friends she had known for years gradually disappeared from her life. My final attempt to reach her came a month before the wedding. I invited her to lunch at our favorite childhood diner. For a moment, surrounded by the familiar comfort food and memories, the old Olivia emerged. She confessed to having doubts, to feeling overwhelmed by Brian's family's expectations. Sometimes I feel like I can't breathe around them, she admitted quietly. Like nothing I do is ever good enough. Hope flared within me. Liv, you don't have to go through with this if you're not sure. You can always step back. Take more time. Her eyes welled with tears. It's too late. Everything's arranged. Mom and Dad love him. The deposits are paid. It's never too late, I insisted, reaching for her hand. I'll help you, whatever you need. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Olivia's face transformed instantly from vulnerable to panicked. Brian strode toward our table, his expression thunderous. I've been calling you for an hour, he said to Olivia, ignoring my presence completely. We were just catching up, I explained, meeting his gaze steadily. Sister time. Brian's smile was chilling. Sister time. How sweet. Funny how this sister time coincides with our meeting with the caterer, which we're now late for. I forgot, Olivia said quickly, gathering her purse. I'm so sorry, babe. Of course you did. The condescension in his voice made my skin crawl. Then he turned to me. leaning down until his face was inches from mine. I know what you're trying to do. It won't work. Olivia knows who really cares about her future. After they left, I sat in that booth for another hour, a sick feeling growing in the pit of my stomach. When I tried calling Olivia that evening, her number had been blocked. My texts went undelivered. Somehow, I knew that was the last real conversation we would have before she became his wife. I learned about the official engagement through Instagram, not from my sister directly. The photo showed Olivia's hand sporting an enormous diamond with the caption. She said, "Yes, wedding planning begins." The lack of personal notification hurt, but I tried to remain positive. Despite our recent conflict, surely I would be included in my only sister's wedding. The assumption seemed confirmed when Olivia called me, sounding more like her old self than she had in months. "I want you to be my maid of honor," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. No one else would feel right standing beside me. For a brief, shining moment, I felt hope for our relationship. "I'd be honored," I replied, emotion making my voice catch. "Whatever you need, I'm here." We made plans to go dress shopping the following weekend with our mother. I spent the week looking at bridesmaid dresses online, creating a Pinterest board of ideas, and researching my responsibilities as maid of honor. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a genuine reconnection with my sister. The shopping trip started pleasantly enough. Olivia tried on several stunning gowns, and we all teared up when she emerged in an off-shoulder lace creation that seemed made for her. But the atmosphere shifted when I mentioned bridesmaid dresses. "Let's focus on the bride today," my mother interjected quickly. "We can worry about the wedding party later." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I brushed it aside. Later, over lunch, Olivia's phone kept buzzing with texts that made her expression tighten. She excused herself twice to make calls returning, looking increasingly stressed. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," she replied tersely. "Brian's mother has some opinions about the venue." The rest of the day felt strained. When I tried to discuss dates for a bridal shower, both Olivia and my mother changed the subject. That evening, I received a call from Jessica, a childhood friend who had remained close with both of us over the years. "I just wanted to thank you for suggesting me as a bridesmaid," she said. "I'm so excited about Olivia's bachelorette weekend in Miami. Have you booked your flight yet?" My heart sank. Miami for the bachelorette. "Didn't Olivia tell you all 6 bridesmaids are going next month?" She said her future sister-in-law is organizing it since the maid of honor is too busy. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. 6 bridesmaids, a planned bachelorette, and a designated maid of honor who wasn't me. While still on the phone with Jessica, I received a text from my mother. "Call me when you can. We need to discuss the wedding." Over the next few weeks, the exclusion became more blatant. Relatives called to discuss wedding details, assuming I already knew information that had never been shared with me. My cousin mentioned the bridal shower I hadn't been invited to. An aunt asked about the rehearsal dinner speech I wasn't scheduled to give. When I finally confronted my mother, her response was evasive. "Olivia and Brian want a certain aesthetic for their wedding party. They're making decisions as a couple. What does that mean exactly?" My mother sighed heavily. "Amber, you know how you can be. You're opinionated, strong-willed, and that disqualifies me from being in my sister's wedding. No one is saying that, but this is Olivia's day. Brian's family is very traditional, very image-conscious. Everyone's walking on eggshells trying to make sure everything goes perfectly. So, what a potential embarrassment." The silence that followed was answer enough. My father called the next day, his approach more direct. "Look, Princess, you and Olivia have always had your differences, And you've made your feelings about Brian pretty clear. Because I care about her, I protested. That may be. But right now, what would really show you care is stepping back. Let your sister have her day without conflict. That's what family does. Each conversation left me feeling more isolated and confused. Was I really such a disruption that my presence would ruin my sister's wedding? Was I overreacting to being excluded? The gaslighting was so effective that I began to doubt my own perceptions. Finally, Olivia asked to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. I arrived early, heart pounding with anxiety. She walked in 20 minutes late, immaculately dressed, but visibly tense. "I appreciate you coming," she began formally, as if addressing a business associate rather than her sister. "Of course," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been hoping we could talk." Olivia took a deep breath. "This isn't easy for me, but I need to be honest. Brian and I have been discussing the wedding party, and we feel it would be best if you attended as a guest rather than a bridesmaid." Even though I had suspected this was coming, hearing the words spoken aloud was devastating. "I see. It's nothing personal," she continued, not meeting my eyes. "We're trying to create a certain atmosphere. Brian's family is very particular about appearances. And given your history of speaking your mind—" "My history of speaking my mind," I repeated slowly. "You mean my history of caring about your well-being?" Olivia's expression hardened. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You always think you know what's best for everyone. You judge my choices, my relationship, because I've seen how he treats you live, how he isolates you, controls you." "Stop it," she hissed, glancing around nervously, as if afraid someone might overhear. "This is why you can't be in the wedding. You can't just be happy for me." "I want to be happy for you," I said, fighting back tears. "But I can't pretend to support a relationship that I believe is harmful." Olivia's next words cut deeper than any before. "After careful consideration, Brian and I think it would be better if you didn't attend the wedding at all." The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. "You're uninviting me from your wedding. We think it's for the best. There's too much tension, too much history." "We think, or he thinks, this is a joint decision," Olivia insisted, though her eyes told a different story. "Brian feels, and I agree, that your presence would create unnecessary stress on what should be the happiest day of our lives." I couldn't speak for several moments. When I finally found my voice, it was barely audible. "I'm your sister, Olivia, your only sister. And if you really care about me, you'll respect our wishes." She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "The ceremony will be live-streamed for family who can't attend in person. You can watch from home." With that, she walked out, leaving me sitting alone with cold coffee and the shattered remains of our relationship. The walk home was a blur of tears and disbelief. How had we come to this? How had my concern for her welfare resulted in complete excommunication from the most significant day of her life? That night, I broke down on the phone with Rachel, my best friend since college. "I don't even recognize my own family anymore," I sobbed. "They're acting like I'm some toxic presence when all I've done is try to protect Olivia. They're enabling an abuser," Rachel said bluntly, "and making you the villain because it's easier than facing the truth." The weeks leading up to the wedding were excruciating. Social media became a minefield of wedding preparations I wasn't part of. Colleagues innocently asked about my sister's upcoming nuptials, forcing me to fabricate explanations for why I wouldn't be attending. The pitying looks were almost worse than the exclusion itself. As the date approached, my emotions cycled between anger, hurt, and gnawing worry. Something felt deeply wrong about the entire situation beyond just the personal rejection. but I had been so thoroughly branded as the problem that no one would listen to my concerns. The night before the wedding, my mother called. "I just want you to know we wish circumstances were different," she said, her voice strained. "They could be different," I replied. "I could be there tomorrow supporting my sister like family should. Please don't make this harder than it already is." "I'm not the one making it hard," I said, and hung up. That night, I cried myself to sleep, haunted by the thought of Olivia walking down the aisle without me binding herself legally to a man who had already shown his capacity for emotional abuse and manipulation. Little did I know that the next day would reveal just how right my instincts had been all along. The morning of Olivia's wedding dawned bright and clear. Instead of helping my sister prepare for her big day, I laced up my hiking boots and joined a group of friends for a trail adventure in the forest preserve outside Chicago. The physical exertion was exactly what I needed, pushing my body to exhaustion in hopes of quieting my mind. "You're setting a brutal pace today, my friend," Thomas commented as we reached the summit overlook. "Everything okay?" "My sister's getting married right now," I replied, taking a long swig from my water bottle, "to someone I think is dangerous for her." "And you're not there. Wasn't invited." The words still tasted bitter. "That's rough," he said simply. And I appreciated that he didn't offer platitudes or forced optimism. Throughout the day, I resisted the urge to check social media. I knew my parents and extended family would be posting photos celebrating the perfect couple and their elegant ceremony. Around 4 in the afternoon, my resolve crumbled. Sitting in a coffee shop after our hike, I opened Instagram and was immediately confronted with images of Olivia in her wedding dress, looking beautiful, but somehow diminished her smile, not quite reaching her eyes. The ceremony had taken place at 2, meaning she was officially Mrs. Brian Harrington now. The thought made my stomach twist. I scrolled through more photos. The venue decorated in cream and gold. My parents beaming proudly. Brian looking handsome and polished in his tuxedo, his hand possessively on the small of Olivia's back. I closed the app and drove home, trying to focus on a documentary rather than imagining the reception that was likely in full swing. Around 9:30, my phone rang. It was Rachel, her voice urgent and breathless. "Amber, are you watching the news?" "No. Why would I be turning it on Channel 7? Now something in." Her tone had me grabbing for the remote. The local news was just returning from commercial break. The anchor's expression serious. "Our top story tonight. Shocking footage from a downtown wedding reception shows the groom striking his new bride in front of hundreds of stunned guests. The video, which was uploaded to social media just hours ago, has already been viewed over 50,000 times. The screen cut to cell phone footage that was slightly shaky, but unmistakably clear. The grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel was immediately recognizable, decorated, exactly as I had seen in the Instagram photos. The video showed the head table during what appeared to be the toast portion of the evening. Brian was standing champagne glass in hand, his words inaudible over the background music. But his body language told a story. The slight sway suggesting intoxication, the too tight grip on the microphone, the artificial smile that didn't match his eyes. The camera captured Olivia leaning up to whisper something in his ear. Whatever she said caused an instant transformation. Brian's face contorted with rage, and before anyone could react, his hand flew out, connecting with Olivia's cheek with enough force to snap her head to the side. The gasps from the crowd were audible, even through the phone recording. Olivia's hand went to her face, her expression a mixture of shock, pain, and humiliation. Tears immediately sprang to her eyes as she stared up at her new husband in disbelief. For one terrible moment, the entire room seemed frozen in horrified silence. Then chaos erupted. Several male guests rushed toward the head table. 2 security personnel from the hotel appeared in frame, moving quickly toward Brian. The video cut off abruptly as someone stepped in front of the person recording. The news anchor reappeared. The bride has been identified as Olivia Thompson, daughter of local business owners Robert and Susan Thompson. The groom, Brian Harrington, is the son of real estate developer William Harrington. Police were called to the scene, but no charges have been filed at this time. We'll continue to follow this developing story. I sat on my couch, unable to move the remote, still clutched in my hand. The image of Olivia's shocked face played on repeat in my mind. My sister, on what should have been the happiest day of her life, publicly assaulted by the man who had just vowed to love and cherish her. My fingers trembled as I dialed Olivia's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried my parents. Same result. I sent text after text, receiving no response. The silence was deafening and terrifying. Turning back to my laptop, I searched Brian's name. The video had indeed gone viral, appearing on multiple news sites and social media platforms. Comments were pouring in by the minute, most expressing outrage and concern for Olivia. A few defended Brian, suggesting it must have been a misunderstanding, or that Olivia had provoked him. Reading those comments made me physically ill. Local news channels were picking up the story each broadcast, adding new details. The wedding party had been immediately disbanded. Hotel security had escorted Brian from the premises. Guests reported that Olivia had been taken to a private room by her parents. The planned honeymoon departure to Bora Bora had been canceled. Brian's family had released a brief statement. "We are aware of the unfortunate incident that occurred this evening. The situation has been greatly exaggerated by social media. We ask for privacy as our families work through this personal matter." The cold corporate tone of the statement made my blood boil. Unfortunate incident, exaggerated. They were already spinning the narrative, trying to minimize what was clearly assault. By midnight, I couldn't stand the silence any longer. I drove to my parents' suburban home, finding it dark and empty. A neighbor confirmed they hadn't returned from the city. I tried Olivia's apartment next, with the same result. Around 1 in the morning, my phone pinged with a news alert. A woman identified as Catherine Winters, Brian's ex-girlfriend from 3 years ago, had come forward with allegations of similar abuse during their relationship. "I wasn't surprised when I saw the video," she told the reporter. "This was his pattern. Charming in public, volatile in private. When I tried to leave him, he became violent. I filed a police report, but his father's connections made it disappear. I just hope Olivia gets the support I never had." Sleep was impossible that night. I sat watching my phone, jumping at every notification, desperate for news that my sister was safe. The guilt was overwhelming. I should have tried harder to make her see the truth about Brian. I should have found a way past her defenses. I should have been there today, wedding invitation or not. By morning, the story had expanded further. More witnesses from the wedding had spoken to the press. Details emerged about what had triggered the assault. Olivia had apparently whispered that she wanted to leave early because she wasn't feeling well. Brian, already intoxicated and annoyed that she wasn't properly enjoying their expensive party, had lashed out. Hotel staff confirmed that Brian had been drinking heavily throughout the reception and had been rude to servers before the incident. A college friend of Brian's anonymously reported that this behavior wasn't new, that Brian had always had a nasty streak when drunk or challenged. My doorbell rang around 8:30. I rushed to answer it, hoping it was Olivia, but instead found my mother standing there looking haggarded and aged beyond her years. "Is she with you?" were her first words. "No," I replied, stepping back to let her in. "I've been trying to reach all of you all night." "Where is she? Is she okay?" My mother sank onto my couch, her designer outfit from the wedding now wrinkled and worn. "We don't know. She's not answering her phone. Your father is out looking for her. What happened after? After the video, I could barely form the words. It was horrible, my mother whispered. Everyone's staring. The security guards took Brian away. Olivia was hysterical. We brought her to a hotel room upstairs to calm down. I went to get her some water, and when I came back, she was gone. Just gone. The fear that had been building all night crested into full-blown panic. And you waited until now to come here, to even let me know what was happening. We thought she might have gone with one of her friends. We've been calling everyone except me, I said flatly. You didn't think to call me until you ran out of options. My mother looked away, unable to meet my eyes. We didn't think she would come to you after everything. After everything, I repeated. You mean after I was the only one who tried to warn all of you about exactly this? About who Brian really was? She flinched at my words. This isn't the time for I told you so, Amber. No, I agreed, reaching for my car keys and phone. It's time to find my sister. The day after the wedding, media vans lined our parents' quiet suburban street. Reporters with microphones stood ready at the edge of the property, hoping to catch a statement or glimpse of the family at the center of the viral controversy. I parked 2 blocks away and walked through a neighbor's backyard to avoid them. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. My father sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his phone. My mother was speaking in hushed tones with Brian's parents in the living room. Any word from Olivia? I asked, setting down my purse. My father shook his head. Your mother got a text around 3 this morning saying she's safe. That's all we know. My phone buzzed with a call from my mother. Confused, I looked toward the living room where I could still hear her voice. The screen showed unknown number. Hello, I answered cautiously. Amber, it's me. Olivia's voice was barely recognizable, hoarse and small. Can we talk? Just us. Relief flooded through me. Of course. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm at the Holiday Inn off the interstate, room 217. Please don't tell anyone. I can't face them right now. I'm on my way. I promised. Sit tight. I made an excuse about needing air and slipped out the back door, heart pounding with anxiety and hope. 20 minutes later, I knocked softly on room 217. Olivia opened the door wearing oversized sweatpants and a baggy t-shirt, items I guessed she must have purchased from the hotel gift shop. Despite the warm summer day, she had the air conditioning blasting. Dark sunglasses covered her eyes, even in the dim room. We stood awkwardly for a moment before she stepped forward and collapsed into my arms, her body shaking with silent sobs. I held her tightly, feeling the weight of years of estrangement dissolve in the face of her pain. I'm so sorry, she whispered against my shoulder. You were right. You were right about everything. I guided her to the edge of the bed, keeping my arm around her shoulders. Don't worry about that now. I just need to know you're safe. Have you seen a doctor? Slowly, hesitantly, she removed the sunglasses. The bruise blooming across her cheekbone told a story far beyond the slap captured on video. This wasn't the first time he had hit her. There's more, she said, quietly rolling up her sleeves to reveal finger-shaped bruises on her arms. This happened the night before the wedding when I said I was having doubts. Rage surged through me, hot and blinding. I forced myself to breathe to stay calm for her sake. This wasn't the time for I told you so. This was the time for support. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked gently. I was ashamed, embarrassed. And then there was so much pressure from everyone. Mom and Dad had spent a fortune on the wedding. His parents were telling everyone how perfect we were together. It felt like I was trapped in a current pulling me towards something I knew was wrong, but I couldn't fight it anymore. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. And you? I pushed you away when you were the only one trying to help me. He convinced me you were jealous that you were trying to ruin my happiness because you didn't have anyone yourself. That's what abusers do, I said softly. They isolate you from people who might help you see the truth. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened hanging between us. What triggered it? I finally asked. At the reception, Olivia's laugh was hollow. I told him I wanted to leave early. I said I had a headache from not eating all day. He'd been drinking since before the ceremony, getting more and more aggressive. He said I was trying to embarrass him in front of his family and friends by not looking happy enough at our perfect wedding. She stared down at her hands. When the cameras were on us during the toasts, I whispered that I really needed to lie down. That's when he hit me in front of everyone, including his mother, who later told me I must have provoked him. His mother said that I couldn't hide my shock. She wasn't the only one. Dad suggested I might have pushed Brian's buttons with my timing. Mom was more worried about the video going viral than whether I was okay. My heart sank at this confirmation of our parents' priorities. What did they say when you left the hotel? I didn't tell them I was leaving. After they brought me to that room, I heard them in the hallway talking with Brian's parents about damage control. They were discussing a joint statement about how the video was misleading and the incident exaggerated. Her voice hardened. I climbed down the fire escape and took a taxi here. And Brian? Where is he now? I don't know. His best man took him somewhere after security removed him from the ballroom. His parents are staying at our house supposedly to help the families present a united front. She shuddered. Mom called earlier saying I should come home so we can all work this out like adults. Work it out, I repeated incredulously. What exactly do they think there is to work out? She said, and I quote, "Marriage has its rough patches. You need to learn to navigate conflict without airing your dirty laundry in public." I couldn't contain my outrage. He assaulted you on your wedding day in front of hundreds of witnesses. That's not a rough patch. That's a crime. Olivia's shoulders slumped. I know, but they're more concerned with appearances than my safety. Brian's family has money and connections. Our parents are thinking about their social standing. What do you want to do? I asked, focusing on what mattered. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. I need somewhere to stay until I figure things out. I can't go back to my apartment. Brian has a key. Her voice trembled. I don't have anywhere else to go. Yes, you do, I said firmly. You're coming home with me. I have a spare bedroom. You can stay as long as you need. For the first time, a hint of relief crossed her face. Are you sure? After everything I've put you through. You're my sister, I said simply. Nothing will ever change that. We gathered her few belongings and checked out of the hotel. At my apartment, I helped her settle into the guest room, brought her tea and sat with her until she fell into an exhausted sleep. Then, I made some calls. The next morning, we drove to our parents' house to collect some of her things. The confrontation was even worse than I had anticipated. There you are, my mother exclaimed when we walked in. Brian's parents have been beside themselves with worry. They're at the hotel now, but they'll be relieved to know you're safe. I'm not seeing Brian, Olivia said firmly. I'm just here to get my things. My father emerged from his study, face drawn. Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but everyone has bad moments. The important thing is how we move forward. Bad moments? I interjected, unable to contain myself. He physically assaulted your daughter on her wedding day. No one is excusing what happened, my mother said quickly. But these situations are complicated. Heat of the moment. Too much champagne. Stop. It, Olivia said, her voice stronger than I'd heard in years. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a one-time thing. Brian has been controlling and abusive throughout our relationship. I was just too ashamed to admit it. Abusive is a very serious accusation, my father cautioned. You need to be careful about throwing that word around. She has bruises all over her arms from the night before the wedding, I countered. Is that careful enough for you? My mother's expression hardened. Amber, you're not helping. You've never liked Brian, and now you're using this unfortunate incident to turn Olivia against him and her family. I'm not turning anyone against anyone, I replied, struggling to keep my composure. I'm supporting my sister after she was assaulted by the man you all pushed her to marry, despite obvious warning signs. Nobody pushed her, my father insisted. She's a grown woman who made her own choice. After you all made it clear that any other choice would be a disappointment, I shot back. Olivia, who had been quietly gathering her belongings, suddenly spoke up. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. This is exactly why I left yesterday. Everyone is more concerned with assigning blame or saving face than with how I'm actually doing. She turned to face our parents directly. I'm staying with Amber for now. I'm filing for an annulment and a restraining order tomorrow. I don't want to see or speak to Brian ever again. Don't be hasty, my mother pleaded. At least talk to him, hear his side. His side? Olivia's voice rose in disbelief. What possible explanation could justify hitting me? People make mistakes, my father said, especially under stress. The important thing is forgiveness and moving forward. The important thing is my safety and self-respect, Olivia countered. And right now, that means leaving. We departed with 2 suitcases of her clothes and personal items, ignoring my mother's tears and my father's stern warnings about rash decisions. The drive back to my apartment was silent, both of us processing the disturbing reality of our family's priorities. Over the next few weeks, Olivia and I established a new routine. I connected her with my therapist, who specialized in domestic abuse survivors. We found a lawyer who helped her file for an annulment and a restraining order against Brian. I screened her calls, blocking Brian's number and limiting contact with our parents to brief factual updates. The media interest eventually died down, though the video remained accessible online, a permanent digital reminder of that terrible moment. Brian's family attempted various strategies to control the narrative, from claiming the video was misleading to suggesting Olivia had provoked the incident. They even tried financial intimidation, threatening to 4139, sue anyone who defamed their son's character by sharing the footage. Through it all, Olivia slowly began to reclaim herself. Each day brought small victories, sleeping through the night without nightmares, venturing out to the grocery store without fear, laughing genuinely at a movie we watched together. Late one evening, about a month after she'd moved in, we sat on my balcony sharing a bottle of wine and watching the city lights. I still can't believe how everything turned out, Olivia said, her eyes distant. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching someone else's life unfold. I know what you mean, I replied. I keep thinking about how different things might have been if I had listened to you from the beginning, she finished. If I hadn't let him isolate me from you. That's not what I was going to say, I assured her. I was thinking about how different things might have been if I hadn't been pushed out of your wedding. If I had been there when it happened. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You're here now. That's what matters. As we sat in comfortable silence, I realized we were finally having the sister relationship I had always longed for. It had come at a terrible cost, but in the aftermath of trauma, we had found our way back to each other. The road ahead would be challenging, with legal battles and emotional healing still to navigate, but at least we were facing it together. Do you know what Brian told me after he met you that first time? Olivia asked suddenly. He said, you were the only one who saw through him. He actually said, your sister is trouble. She notices too much. He was right about one thing, I replied. I noticed how he changed you, how he dimmed your light. She nodded slowly. I think I noticed too deep down. I just didn't want to admit it, even to myself. That night marked a turning point in our recovery. The wall between us had finally crumbled, allowing honest communication to flow. We began to rebuild not just Olivia's life, but our relationship as sisters. This time on a foundation of truth and mutual respect. 6 weeks after the wedding disaster, our parents requested a family meeting at their house. Olivia was hesitant, but we agreed to go together, establishing clear boundaries beforehand. We would leave immediately if they tried to pressure her about reconciliation with Brian, and we would arrive and depart in the same car to ensure neither of us could be isolated. Their house looked the same, as always, pristine and perfectly decorated, betraying no hint of the family crisis unfolding within its walls. My mother greeted us with awkward hugs, my father with stiff nods. The tension in the air was palpable as we sat in the formal living room, the space where family disagreements had always been handled with forced politeness. "We appreciate you both coming." My father began, his tone suggesting a business meeting rather than a family gathering. "We've been giving this situation a lot of thought." My mother nodded. "We understand that what happened at the wedding was unfortunate, but we're concerned about the public nature this has all taken." "Unfortunate?" I repeated, already feeling my blood pressure rise. "Is that really the word you're going with?" "Please, Amber," my father said sternly. "Let's keep this civil." Olivia sat up straighter. "What exactly did you want to discuss?" My mother smoothed her skirt nervously. "We've been in contact with Brian and his parents. They're very concerned about your well-being, sweetie." "I bet they are," I muttered. "Brian has enrolled in an anger management program," my father continued. "He's seeing a therapist twice weekly. He's making real efforts to address what happened." Olivia's face remained impassive. "Good for him." "The thing is," my mother said carefully, "he still loves you. He's devastated by what happened and wants a chance to make amends." "Let me guess," I interjected. "He wants Olivia to drop the restraining order and consider counseling together." The surprised looks on my parents' faces confirmed I had hit the nail on the head. "Actually, yes," my father admitted. His therapist suggested that joint counseling could be beneficial for both of them, a way to process what happened and determine if there's a path forward. "There is no path forward," Olivia said quietly but firmly. "What happened at the wedding wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time it happened where others could see." My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Olivia, dear," my mother began cautiously, "we all say and do things we regret in relationships. Marriage takes work and forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation," I pointed out. "Olivia can forgive Brian from a safe distance without putting herself in harm's way again." "This is exactly what we were afraid would happen," my father said, his frustration evident. "Amber, you've always had a knack for creating division in this family." Something inside me snapped. Years of being labeled the difficult one, the troublemaker, the problem child came rushing to the surface. "Creating division?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "I have spent my entire life being told I was too much, too loud, too opinionated while you spoiled Olivia and ignored every red flag about the men she dated. I worked through high school and college while you drained my college fund for her Sweet 16 party and spring break trips. I was excluded from her wedding for daring to suggest her fiancé was controlling. And now that he's publicly confirmed every concern I ever voiced are blaming me." The room fell silent. My mother's face had gone pale, my father's red with anger. "That's not fair." He started, but I wasn't finished. "No. What's not fair is watching my sister suffer abuse, and seeing my parents more concerned with appearances than her safety. What's not fair is being scapegoated my entire life for trying to protect this family from uncomfortable truths. I turned to Olivia, suddenly afraid I had overstepped. To my surprise, she was nodding. "She's right, Olivia," said her voice stronger than I had heard in weeks. "This pattern has been going on our whole lives. You've always favored me, given me everything while expecting Amber to fend for herself. You taught me that I was entitled to whatever I wanted without working for it. Is it any wonder I ended up with a man who treated me like a possession rather than a partner?" My father stood abruptly. "I will not sit here and be accused of failing as a parent, when all we've ever done is try to give you girls the best of everything." "The best of everything isn't just material things," I said. "It's teaching healthy boundaries, self-respect, and how to recognize when someone is treating you badly." "We don't have to listen to this," my father declared, storming out of the room. The front door slammed moments later. My mother remained seated, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand how we got here," she whispered. "We just wanted you both to be happy," Mom Olivia said gently. "I know you meant well, but happiness built on pretending problems don't exist isn't real happiness. I need you to support my decision to leave Brian permanently, not pressure me to reconcile. And I need you to stop treating me like the villain in this family story," I added. "I'm not against you. I'm against seeing my sister hurt." My mother didn't respond directly, simply nodded slightly and wiped her eyes. "Your father will calm down 4913 eventually. He always does." We left shortly after, both emotionally drained, but somehow lighter. In the car, Olivia reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you for saying what needed to be said. I don't think I could have done that alone. You're stronger than you think," I told her. "You proved that by walking away from Brian." The weeks that followed brought silence from our parents. My father's anger and my mother's hurt created a vacuum where communication had once existed. It was painful, but also clarifying. For the first time, Olivia and I were standing together, supporting each other without the complicated family dynamics interfering. Meanwhile, Brian wasn't accepting the end of the relationship gracefully. His initial remorse transformed into vindictiveness when he realized Olivia wasn't coming back. He contested the annulment, demanding they try marriage counseling first. When that failed, he began using financial leverage, threatening to ruin her credit, and claiming ownership of gifts given during their relationship. The restraining order was put to the test when he appeared outside my apartment building one evening. Olivia spotted him from the window and immediately called the police. The incident strengthened her resolve to cut all ties permanently. The divorce proceedings dragged on for months, with Brian's attorneys employing delay tactics and attempting to paint Olivia as mentally unstable. The viral video proved invaluable, serving as irrefutable evidence of his violent behavior. Finally, almost 6 months after the wedding, the divorce was granted. The judge's stern words to Brian about domestic violence offered some small measure of justice. Throughout this difficult period, Olivia and I grew closer than we had been since childhood. We established weekend traditions, Saturday morning hikes, Sunday brunch at a local cafe, movie nights with ridiculously unhealthy snacks. We talked about everything from our shared childhood memories to our hopes for the future. During one such conversation, Olivia asked the question I had been avoiding. "Why did you forgive me so easily? After everything I did, pushing you away, believing Brian over you, the wedding exclusion, I was horrible to you. I considered this carefully. It wasn't about forgiveness so much as understanding. You were manipulated by someone who identified your vulnerabilities and exploited them. And honestly, our family dynamic set the stage long before Brian entered the picture. Still, she insisted most people would have said, 'I told you so,' and left me to figure things out on my own. Maybe, But you're my sister. And I remembered the little girl who used to follow me around like I hung the moon. I knew that person was still in there somewhere. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Amber, for everything. Not just with Brian, but for all the years I took advantage of how our parents treated us differently. I knew it wasn't fair, but it was easier to accept the favoritism than to question it. I wasn't perfect either, I admitted. Sometimes I was so focused on being right that I forgot to be kind. There were times I resented you, instead of recognizing that you were being harmed by their enabling too, just in a different way. That conversation marked a turning point. We weren't just two people bonded by circumstance and crisis anymore. We were actively rebuilding our relationship on new foundations of honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care. As spring arrived, Olivia made the decision to return to college to complete the degree she had abandoned when she met Brian. I helped her apply for scholarships and financial aid. Proud of her determination to build an independent life, she moved into her own apartment near campus, a small but significant step toward reclaiming her autonomy. I invested in my own growth as well, accepting a promotion that required more travel but offered exciting new challenges. We made sure to stay connected despite busier schedules, texting daily and reserving Sunday evenings for phone calls or dinner together. When Thanksgiving approached, we faced a dilemma. Our first major holiday since the wedding confrontation loomed with unresolved family tension. After much discussion, we decided to create our own tradition, inviting friends who didn't have local family to a potluck at my apartment. The day before Thanksgiving, my mother called. It was the first direct contact in nearly 3 months. I was wondering if you girls had plans for tomorrow, she said hesitantly. We're hosting dinner at my place, I replied. A Friendsgiving kind of thing. Oh. The disappointment in her voice was evident. Your father and I were hoping. Well, we thought it might be nice to try to be together as a family. I glanced at Olivia, who was listening on speakerphone. She nodded slightly. Maybe we could stop by for dessert, I offered around 7. That would be wonderful, my mother said, her relief palpable. I'll make that pumpkin cheesecake you both like. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start, a tentative bridge being built across the chasm that had opened between us. There would be more difficult conversations ahead, more boundaries to establish and respect. But for the first time, I felt hopeful that our family might eventually heal, even if the relationship looked different than before. 1 year after the wedding, that never should have been Olivia and I sat at a quiet table in our favorite cafe, sharing breakfast and reflecting on how much had changed. The anniversary had brought some difficult emotions for her, but she was facing them with a strength and clarity that made me incredibly proud. I barely recognized the person I was back then, she said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Sometimes it feels like I'm watching someone else's life when I think about it. The physical signs of that day had long since faded, but the emotional healing continued. Olivia had transformed in ways both visible and invisible. Her natural confidence had returned, no longer dimmed by someone else's control. She had cut her hair short, dyed it purple for a while, and finally settled on a style that she chose purely because it made her happy. Her wardrobe, once restricted to Brian's approved palette of muted tones, now exploded with color and personality. You've come so far, I told her sincerely. Finishing your degree, finding your new apartment, volunteering at the crisis. I'm so proud of you. She had indeed thrown herself into building a new life. After completing her business degree, she had secured a position at a marketing firm that valued her creativity and insights. Her tiny apartment near downtown was filled with art and books banned during her relationship with Brian. Most meaningfully, she had begun volunteering at a domestic violence resource center, using her experience to help other women center, recognize and escape abusive relationships. "I couldn't have done any of it without you," she insisted. "You gave me a safe place to land when my whole world imploded." Our relationship with our parents had improved, though slowly, and with clear boundaries. After several difficult conversations and a few family therapy sessions, they had come to acknowledge their role in enabling unhealthy patterns. My father struggled the most with accepting responsibility. But even he had made progress recently, admitting that he should have taken my concerns about Brian more seriously. Family gatherings were no longer exercises in pretending problems didn't exist. Instead, we were learning to communicate honestly, even when it was uncomfortable. The process wasn't perfect, but it was genuine, which made even the difficult moments meaningful. "Have you heard anything more about Brian?" I asked cautiously. Olivia shook her head. "Not directly. Jessica mentioned that he's dating someone new, some woman he met through his parents' country club. I couldn't hide my concern. That poor woman has no idea what she's getting into." "I thought about trying to warn her somehow," Olivia admitted. "But I don't think she'd believe me. I wouldn't have believed me a year ago." This was the painful truth we had both come to recognize. People rarely accept warnings about abusive behavior until they experience it themselves. All the red flags that seemed so obvious in retrospect were easily dismissed or rationalized in the moment, especially when an abuser was skilled at manipulation. "The video is still out there," I pointed out. "If she searches his name, she'll find it." "True. And his family can't erase that, no matter how hard they try." She smiled sadly. "Maybe that's my contribution to the world, unwitting as it was. A public record of who he really is." The lessons we had both learned through this ordeal were profound and lasting. For Olivia, the journey had been about recognizing her own worth and rebuilding her sense of self after years of gradual erosion. For me, it had been about finding the balance between speaking truth and offering support, between standing firm in my convictions and being gentle with those I loved. "You know what I wish someone had told me years ago?" Olivia said, breaking our reflective silence. "That love doesn't hurt. That someone who truly loves you will never make you feel smaller or less worthy. They'll never isolate you from people who care about you, and that your instincts matter." I added, "If something feels wrong, it probably is, even if you can't articulate exactly why." We had both become more discerning in our relationships. Olivia was taking time to focus on herself, declining dating opportunities to ensure she was fully healed before considering a new relationship. I had recently started seeing someone who respected my directness, rather than trying to soften my edges. A refreshing change from past experiences. "Do you think forgiveness is always possible?" Olivia asked suddenly. "Not just with Brian, but with Mom and Dad too." I considered this carefully. I think forgiveness is possible, but it doesn't mean forgetting or exposing yourself to more hurt. It's about finding peace with what happened, not pretending it didn't happen. "I think I've forgiven our parents," she said slowly. "They made mistakes, serious ones, but they were doing what they thought was right, however misguided. And Brian?" She looked out the window, watching people pass by on the street. "That's harder. I'm not there yet. Maybe someday, not for his sake, but for mine." "There's no timeline for healing," I reminded her. "You get to process this in whatever way works for you." Our conversation turned to future plans. Olivia was considering graduate school, exploring programs that would help her advance in her career. I had been approached about a potential promotion that would involve managing my own team, a challenge I was eager to embrace. As we prepared to leave, Olivia surprised me with a small gift box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with 2 intertwined circles. "It's a sister knot," she explained, symbolizing an unbreakable bond even when tested. I blinked back tears as I fastened it around my wrist. It's perfect. Walking back to our respective cars, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this point. The path had been painful beyond imagination, but the relationship we had now was stronger and more authentic than I ever could have hoped for. We had weathered the worst storm and emerged not just intact, but transformed. The experience had taught me that family bonds can be simultaneously fragile and resilient. They can break under pressure, but also reform in new, sometimes stronger configurations. Most importantly, I had learned that speaking truth, even when it costs you dearly in the moment, is ultimately an act of love that can ripple out in unexpected ways. I often think about what I would tell others facing similar situations with loved ones in harmful relationships. Trust your instincts. Set boundaries, but leave doors open. Be the safe harbor they can return to when they're ready. And remember that recovery isn't linear, but it is possible with patience and support. Have you ever had to stand by watching someone you love make a decision you knew was wrong for them? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their family struggles. Thank you for listening to our story. And remember, sometimes the strongest family bonds are the ones that have been broken and carefully mended back together. The end. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Comment below which story you want to hear next. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.